Vanakkam, friends. This is ARRM Arun. I am President of the Southern India Chamber of Commerce and Industry, SICCI. On behalf of SICCI, we take great pleasure in inviting our esteemed guest for today, Dr. Jawahar Palniappan, for accepting our invitation and joining us this evening. I would also like to take this opportunity to welcome you all and appreciate your taking the time as well to join us. On behalf of SICCI, we would like to wish each one of you joining us from India a very good evening, and for each of you joining us across the United States, a very good morning to you. As most of you would be aware, SICCI has completed 111 years of service to industry, government, and society. During these years, we have conducted tremendous number of programs that have been of benefit to each one of our stakeholders. During each of our programs, we have had several eminent guests participating with us and sharing with us their expertise. Invariably, our guests restrict their address to just the area of expertise. We, however, felt that our guests have much more to offer than just the area of expertise. We felt that our guests can share with us their all-round path to success, their life's journey, what has made them successful, their mentors, their inputs for the next generation and society. That is how we came up with the concept of SICCI 360. We are extremely glad that we've since completed 18 successful sessions of SICCI 360, and today is our 19th session. Before I continue with the slide that you see in front of you, I would like to draw your attention to the names and numbers of two of our executives listed in the bottom of this slide. I request you to please make a note of it, and if you have any issues in reconnecting during the course of today's call, please give our executives a call and they'll be glad to assist you reconnect. As I was saying, SICCI 360 is a recent foray for us, and we've been building on the experience of our seminars. We wanted to give it a name that depicts a multidimensional perspective, and that is how we came up with SICCI 360. We orient the SICCI 360 series to be a lively discussion with each of our eminent guests, and each of our guests are experts in their fields who share with us their all-round paths to excellence. We have a stringent criteria for selecting our guests. We typically look for over 4 decades of experience that each of our guests have in the respective industry as well as society at large. And of course, this is in a political platform. The format that we follow during the SICCI 360 series is that we have a specific flow of 5 sections that we go over. We first talk about our guests' expertise. We then talk about our guests' organization and their role within their organization. Third, we talk about our guests' career path. Fourth, we talk about our guests' inputs for the next generation. And finally, we talk about our guests' inputs for society. We would like to encourage you, the audience, to participate with us. You can always share your comments through the online chat session, and our SICCI 360 team would be glad to moderate it and feed it to us so that we can have it addressed during the course of today's call. There are 2 broad guidelines that we follow. We want to make sure that our guest is at comfort at all times during the call, so that our guests would be willing to come back to our call, to our SICCI 360 program, when we would like to invite them the second time. We ensure that our guest is not at any discomfort at any point of time. And secondly, we would certainly like you, the audience, to participate, and that's how we have oriented this series. With those few words, I'd now like to share a few words about our esteemed guest for today, Dr. Jawahar Palniappan. I would like to refer to him as a multidimensional, successful person. There are several multidimensional people, but I do not find them to be successful in everything that they take up. But Dr. Jawahar Palniappan is, on the contrary, successful in everything that he has taken up thus far. And that is what makes us very excited to have him on the show today. Dr. Jawahar Palniappan is referred to as Dr. Paula. So during the course of today's call, I will be referring to him as Dr. Paula as well. He's the son of Thiru SAP Annamlai Chettiar and Tirumati Kodayachi. Thiru Annamlai Chettiar has been the founder of Kumudam Publications that was set up several decades ago in Chennai. Dr. Pala completed his MBBS at the Madras Medical College in 1974 And during this time, he was awarded several gold medals, including the George Smith Award in Pathology and Dr. Srinivasalu Naidu Award in Medicine. Following that, Dr. Pala completed his fellowship in cardiology at the Cleveland Clinic in the US during 1982. He has secured multiple board certifications and degrees from American boards of internal medicine, cardiovascular diseases, and interventional cardiology. Dr. Pala is currently the director of cardiology at the Knox Community Hospital in Ohio. And this is where he also set up the cardiology wing at the Knox Community Hospital. He's one of the leading cardiologists in the US, having conducted over 15,000 surgeries during the course of his journey thus far. The second aspect of Dr. Pala is that of his teaching. He is the associate professor at the Ohio State University's Medical College, and his passion has been to shape young minds, develop so that they are able to assist their patients better. Considering his contributions, the mayor of the city of Mount Vernon, which is based in Ohio, has proclaimed the 13th of October, that was the day that Dr. Pala opened his clinic, as Dr. Pala Day. That's certainly significant, and we hope to hear about that in the course of today's call. After Dr. Pala's father's demise in 1994, Dr. Pala took up responsibility of the traditional and long-known Kumadam publications. He currently guides the editorial team that he's been doing ever since then. Under Dr. Pala's stewardship, Kumadam has regained its circulation and its reader dominance. The third area that Dr. Pala has been successful is that of realty. He's founder president of the Pala Realty LLC company, which focuses on owning residential and commercial real estates in Florida. Dr. Pala has hence been successful in 4 different fields, that of medicine, teaching, publications, and realty. There are 2 things that are close to his heart. Of course, the human heart itself, and certainly the Tamil Nagratar heritage. Very glad to know that Dr. Pala and myself are from the same community of the Nagratar Chettiars, who are based out of Chettinad. Dr. Pala has written 3 books in Tamil, including one on Chettinad temples and one about the heart. Dr. Pala's passions are certainly various sports, including tennis, golf, horses, and yachting. With those few words, I would again like to take this opportunity to welcome Dr. Pala to today's program. Dr. Pala, Vanakkam.
Vanakkam. Thank you very much, Mr. Arun, and I'm honored that that SICCI today has invited me to be one of your esteemed guests. I know I think I'm the 19th in your series, and I'm very excited, very happy. And you have brought so much energy and passion into this as president of SICCI, and I'm very proud of that too. And also, I'm extremely honored with the number of people who are participating today, who are live at the session. And from what I heard, there are quite a few young people in the audience who I hope I'll be able to do my share in inspiring them to greater heights of success in their own careers. And also, I know there are very accomplished people also who are in the audience and viewers, who I think hopefully I will learn from them and get their insights and wisdom also. So I look forward to it being a two-way street, so to speak. But I'm very, very happy, very excited to be with all of you today.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pala, and looking forward. So getting right into our first section, which is on your expertise. You were born into an entrepreneurial family, and currently you're a leading cardiologist in the US, also member of your hospital board. What would you say, or who would you say has inspired you to enter medicine? And how did you excel in a branch of science, even though you failed from a business family?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And sometimes I wondered about it myself. And so to me, medicine has been a combination, a culmination of both art and science. And so there is many aspects of medicine in which you need to be a good human being, a compassionate human being, someone who loves people, who enjoys taking care of others and helping others. So you need that component of life. And at the same time, it is also a great field of science with some of the most exciting breakthroughs happening in the world of medicine. And so I found my own personality was kind of a nice mix of those two, the arts and sciences. I've been very, very happy that I've been talented in both, and I've been able to explore both of those. So to go back to how exactly my life started in medicine, my father, through SAP Annamalai, like you mentioned, my late father, he was a immense intellectual. I mean, apart from being from a business family like we all are, and like you mentioned, he was a tremendous intellectual. And he had a collection of 30,000 books that he himself collected. And he even formed a private library called Big Book Friends Library, and he would encourage people to come and use it. So anyway, in the library, there was a book, it was called The Microbe Hunters. And it was a story about how the microbes, which are the bacteria, like before the 1700s, people didn't even know that there's something called microbes and bacteria that exist. And that is the cause of disease. And, thousands and millions of people die of plague and tuberculosis, and no one knew what was the cause of this. So this book, Microbe Hunters, goes over the history of a Dutch scientist. His name is Leeuwenhoek. And those who are in the audience or youngsters should look this up. And he was a glass manufacturer and sort of an amateur scientist. And when he was making these glasses and magnifying glasses, he would magnify it 100 times, 200 times. And then a small drop of water fell behind the glass, and he looked at it. And in that water that appeared to be so clean and pure, there were thousands and thousands of bacteria swimming in it, And that was the birth of microbiology and bacteriology. So the book explains about the story of that science and how that led to such great breakthroughs in medicine, to the world of Pasteur and now inoculations and world of prevention. So I want to tell the story because that was like one of my turning points, inspired by a book, and that brought me so much interest in the world of medicine, and then I took it from there.
Why did you select cardiology in particular to specialize? And having said that, are there advancements in your field that has excited you the most? And continuing on with that, what differences do you see the manner in which healthcare is practiced between the US and India?
Very, very profound questions. And I think, Mr. Arun, I need a lot more time than what you have allotted me, I think, because I love these topics, and these are very, very interesting and intriguing topics. So cardiology itself, I love cardiology because, and especially interventional cardiology, which is what I do, it is at the crossroads of medicine and surgery. So what I mean by that is, like the medicine itself, when you're a great diagnostician, you are studying the intellectual part. You're reading all these books and studying diseases, and it's a kind of a mental discipline. So you become very astute clinician, and so that's a very important part of cardiology. But at the same time, you need the skill sets of a surgeon also. So the surgical skill sets are slightly different. Because as a surgeon, you need to have a certain boldness, a certain steadiness of your hands as a surgeon, a certain nerves. You need nerves of steel, like they say. So you need tremendous physical skill set to be a good surgeon. So I found this interventional cardiology to be so attractive because it required success in both those disciplines, from the purely mental and intellectual part as well as the physical part. And then I was also very fortunate that after training in Chennai Madras Medical College, that I'm very proud, oldest medical college in India, built in 1835, and Stanley was opened in 1838. So one of the oldest, I think it is the oldest in all of India too, I think. So anyway, after I finished, I did my house surgency at Government General Hospital. And then I did my internship in New York City. And then I trained at the world famous Cleveland Clinic Hospital, which is generally considered to be the world's #1 heart hospital. Cleveland and Houston are compared to be the two huge centers in the United States and in the world. So anyway, my timing was so good that I was training in Cleveland Clinic where the world's first angiogram, the heart catheterization, was performed in the 1960s, and the world's first bypass surgery was also done there in the 1960s. But when I was training, the very first balloon angioplasty, you've all heard of the heart catheterizations with the balloon. So that was first done actually in Switzerland in 1979, and then we took it up. And so it was very early in my career. So I was very fortunate that as my career was blossoming, this whole new world of balloon angioplasty, stents, all this took over. And so I was there at the very foundation, at the ground level. And then I was able to become, within quotes, a master at it. And I've done, of course, thousands and thousands of surgeries. So the other point that you raised was the advancement within the field of cardiology. I think out of all the fields in medicine, I think cancer and cardiology have had the most dramatic big breakthroughs and have made the biggest difference to our health. And cardiology is kind of the more exciting of all because of the introduction of how the treatment of patients has completely changed in the last 30 years. Like when I was a house surgeon and intern, if somebody comes in with a heart attack, let's say we have unfortunately a heart attack, all that we used to do was keep these patients in the hospital, give them oxygen, start an IV, give them pain medicines like morphine, and pretty much let nature take its course. And that's all we could do. Whereas now, as soon as somebody's in with chest pain, within 60 minutes, we go from the arm or for the leg, put a catheter in, take an angiogram, see where the blockage is, put a wire in the heart, put a balloon, put a stent, all within 15 to 20 minutes. And pretty much the patient now has a huge smile on their face and is ready to go home the next day. It's truly, every time I do it, I think it's like magic. It's truly a miracle.
And how would you say healthcare is practiced differently between India and the US?
Great question also. So I've given a lot of thought of it. I think in the top tier cities in India, Chennai definitely being one of them, and a number of cities in Tamil Nadu are doing amazing work in medicine. I think at the larger cities, the bigger hospitals, the technology is so advanced that there is a very small gap between what we do in the US and what we do in India, which is tremendous because 2 to 3 decades ago that was not the case. So we all have to be very proud of it, and in some ways we are leading the world in some of the areas too, because a lot of the newest technologies are first introduced in places like in India and Asia before because the FDA in the US is so strict. They need thousands and thousands of proven cases, no complication, before they approve any new device. So in some ways, we have an advantage in India. But the biggest difference I feel is in the US, the physicians and the hospitals are very, very closely monitored. You have these quality control committees, what we call quality assurance, morbidity mortality committees. So like when I do a surgery or a treatment on a patient, I know I am watched by 1,000 eyes. There are so many people watching me, and they're making sure that I'm doing it for the right reason, called the correct indication to do a surgery or a treatment. And then I have to do it with minimum complications. And if there's any untoward complication, I have to explain myself to the committee. So we are very closely watched and monitored. And there's a lot of freedom in critiquing everybody else. And no one takes it as a personal insult or a hurt that you're being critiqued or criticized, a lot of times by a younger, less experienced person. So I think that has been a huge plus in the Western countries, especially in the US, this quality committees that review everything. So that gives tremendous confidence to the patients that we are self-policed, if we are being carefully watched and nobody can do inappropriate things and get away with it.
Chennai has certainly been doing well in heart surgeries, both in terms of expertise as well as the required equipment. And certainly it will be good for us to take that same expertise across the state and also across India, especially into the tier 2 and tier 3 cities, or perhaps into the lower down cities, so that it can be made more available. But completely agree with you. The kind of monitoring and the kind of peer mechanism that happens in the Western countries, it will be good for us to adopt that also. Leading on to the next question, Dr. Pala, Mount Vernon, as I said, um, celebrates Dr. Pala Day, and certainly this is a great accomplishment. Especially as Tamils, we are all proud of it. Especially as part of the Nagarathar community, we are very proud of it. Could you elaborate on this?
Thank you so much for bringing that up. I'm very humbled that that has happened to me because I never expected it. And I think, as far as I know, I'm the only person, especially an Indian American, to have ever been given that honor. So I'm truly humbled by it. So the way it came about is um, I um, I finished my training at Cleveland Clinic and at the Ohio State University, and then I went into this community called Mount Vernon, which is just outside of Columbus, Ohio, which is the capital city of Ohio in the United States. And so we had this hospital where we were just starting. I started the Department of Cardiology, and I took three people on as my first recruits and employees to work with me, and this was in 1982, and so we started very small, and over a period of 2 decades, I was fortunate to be able to build that up into one of the large cardiology departments. Between developing my own clinic, and I was able to use all my skills, within quotes, entrepreneurial skills, business skills, and building up a large private clinic. At the same time, I was heading up the hospital, the intensive care department of cardiology, heart catheterization lab, all these things. And over a period of 2 decades, I was able to build up into a few hundred people where I started working, and we were able to take care of thousands and thousands of patients. And it was a very remarkable story, the rapidity with which we did it, and the quality of the work that we were able to provide, and the number of people that we benefited. So when I had my 25th anniversary of starting this in 2007, we had a large party. We had hundreds of people show up, and we were having a celebration. So I was completely taken aback when the mayor of Mount Vernon showed up, and then he took this piece of paper, his proclamation, and he said to honor me for two things. One is for the quality of care that I brought to the community and the people who benefited from a health point of view, but also from a business point of view and the city's growth and the amount of employment that I created, and the secondary benefits that the city achieved. So in honor of that, they named the day I started my practice, October 13th, as Dr. Pala Day. So it's being celebrated as we go forward. I don't know how many other people celebrate, but I celebrate it every October 13th.
It's wonderful because, of course, we are all excited that you are part of us, and your name is being recognized in such a platform. But the point is that this has been enabled because of the fact that you have positively contributed to society of that region, and they recognize that. And also, what is good to know is that you being an immigrant would be part of a smaller community that has come into such a city, and for a person of this background to be able to have been able to make such a difference is wonderful. Very good job, Dr. Pala. I'm looking forward. Now, moving on to Kumudam within the expertise section. After your father's demise is when you took over the editorial of the magazine, and you helped it regain to top position. But again, your background is perhaps that of medicine and cardiology. What enabled you to take up leadership in Kumudam, and what features of the publishing industry inspired you?
Thank you for that. So again, I'm so honored, so privileged, and so thankful that I had the knowledge and skills to be able to do that with the unexpected passing of my father, which was in 1994, and I was so fully caught up with my work in the U.S. But I found in me that I had the passion and love for journalism that I inherited from my father. Because even though I went into this world of science, when we were growing up, I was beside my father most of the time, where very interestingly, a lot of his editorial meetings, business meetings would be conducted at home, especially weekends. He would work. Of course, he was such a tremendously dedicated person, and a lot of weekends. So I would be actually physically participating, watching how he held these editorial meetings, how he came up with ideas, how they were developed to fruition and made into success. So I was able to, even though I was not formally trained, I kind of, by just being with him, kind of a father-son relationship, I imbibed a lot of these ideas from him, which I look back very fondly. Now, when I look back, that was one. Secondly, during my summer holidays, 2 months every year, I would spend in the Kumudam office right through my school days. So from in every department I would work. And I remember I started in the telephone operator's room. And you remember in the old days, in the 70s, there'll be all these cables, looks like a spider web. So there'll be one phone call coming in from circulation. So I'll plug the cable into circulation. They'll want to talk to agency, so I'll plug the other cable into the other one. So I patch these two people up. So those were very fun and exciting days from the old days. So anyway, I worked in all the various departments. So I had a good feel for it. So I never really lost my interest, my passion for my family, for Chennai, for Kumudam. I mean, I always tell people, US and India are two eyes to me. I really never ever lost my love for my heritage and my legacy. So anyway, when my father passed in '94, I was at that time. It took all I had in me at that time to make sure that we continue his success, and one of the beautiful editorials, actually, I selected a legend in Tamil journalism, Sujata, to take over as interim editor of Kumudam until I got my feel for things and so forth. And he was so generous. He, of course, respected my father so much, and my father loved him. And so he wrote editorial. It's his first editorial on the week my father passed away. So he said, Kumudam என்று துடித்துக் கொண்டிருந்த நெஞ்சம் இன்று நின்று விட்டது. So he said, so that beautifully summarized my father's life. His heartbeat was Kumudam, Kumudam, Kumudam was his heartbeat. And that heartbeat stopped. And so anyway, I remember my father's great contribution. His greatest achievement, I think, is in addition from starting it from nothing, with the first issue being 2,000 copies. It was printed in 1947. So he built it in the 60s and 70s to India's largest circulated magazine, which even now is mind-boggling to me, how it was not a Hindi magazine, not an English magazine, but at an all-India level, the largest circulated magazine was a Tamil magazine, and it was Kumudam. It's astonishing. And it was there, and it was held for years and years. And interestingly, the number 2 magazine was Malayalam Manorama. So these were the 2 leading magazines on a national level as far as circulation. And the other incredible thing is how he brought up the circulation between 6 to 7 lakhs of circulation. And again, this was in the 70s. So each issue is read by almost 15 people. So almost 1 crore of people read the magazine every week. And I look back at the population growth. And in those days, the entire Tamil Nadu population was like 4 crores, something like that. And so that means almost half the people read almost every adult person in Tamil Nadu read the magazine. I mean, statistically, it's astonishing. So anyway, that was his greatness, that he had this passion. And one of the things he did was, like today, it's much easier to run a magazine or a newspaper or anything in the media, because you always have a feel from the social media, what is going viral, what is trending. It's so easy now to know what is trending, whereas in those days you had no idea what is trending. So he would go travel by train and bus. He'll always travel third class. Now I think we don't have third class, but I remember very, very well. He'll travel by third class so that he can listen to what all the people, the comments they make, what they're talking about, what they are reading. So it was amazing how he got a pulse for the people. And anyway, he did that. So I think I'm deviating a little bit, but it's pertinent to the point I'm making. So I watched all this and I imbibed that from him. And I myself have a great love for journalism. I read about 50 magazines a week. Right through my life, I've been reading on weekends. I starting with political magazines. I used to read Reader's Digest, Time, Newsweek, and things. Then I would read popular magazine like People Magazine. I don't know if you know about People Magazine, which is probably the most popular magazine in the US. And the editor of that wrote a beautiful book, How She Made People the #1 magazine in America, which was a source of inspiration to me. And then I would read technical magazines. I would read sports magazines. I would even read trashy magazines like National Enquirer and all these to get a feel for the entire world of journalism. And then every time I go to Chennai, during the period even when I was in US in the 90s, 2000, 2010, every 3 months I'll be in Chennai, spend 3 to 4 weeks with my editorial team, give them all the ideas that I've gotten from the US, and then we'll introduce fresh new ideas into the magazine. So I'm very, very proud and humbled that when I lost my father, our circulation was 3.5 lakhs. And then within 2 years, I was able to build it back up to the 5.5 to 6 lakh circulation. So I feel very vindicated that I was able to achieve that. Yeah.
On the lighter side, Dr. Paula, glad to know that you know all the way from wiring the different wires of the heart to wiring the different wires of an old telephone system. And glad to also know that the heart still remains relevant, but the old phone system is not there anymore. But more importantly, a very important point that you had also raised were about parenting and connection with the children. Glad to know that your father spent that time with you. That connect is very, very important for parents to be able to spend the time with their children, and also it's very important for children to spend the time with their parents and get to know. That increases the bonding as well as ensures that legacy follows through, or values follow through as well. Leading on to the next
Beautiful
question,
point.
Dr.
Beautiful
Pala.
point. I want to say that it doesn't have to be, like in my own case, it doesn't have to be formal, but just setting an example and being with your children and grandchildren, I think you're setting an amazing lesson and you teach them, and it happens naturally. Thank you.
Leading on to the next question, of course, we have faced the pandemic, and invariably, if you had joined us perhaps about 4 to 6 months ago, we would have asked you specific questions on the pandemic. But thankfully, even though you're a doctor, I think we can afford to sidestep that to a large extent because it's well known. But however, I would like to bring the focus on the pandemic into your publishing industry and what you feel has to be done within the publishing industry post the pandemic, and what would you say are the solutions? In that context as well, you've shared a special bond with the former Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu, Kalaignar Karunanidhi. It'll be glad to know about that as well.
Yeah, so talking about the pandemic has been a huge challenge for the media, especially the print media, and within the print media to the magazine part of the media, and within magazines to the regional magazines. It is so we've all taken every Tamil magazine has taken a huge hit, and the circulation has dropped significantly. And during the pandemic period, so I think the first of all, people were not comfortable going out to the shops. They were not comfortable buying these paper magazines, bringing it home, worried that maybe they're bringing a disease back home. And also the habit, because of these practical issues, we were also not able to print and supply these, and it was a challenge. The logistics of getting these magazines via train, bus, so forth to the shops, the whole thing fell apart. So I read that the internet usage in the Tamilian population increased from like somewhere around 21% in 2017-18. It went to 61% somewhere in 21. So that's I'm sure the statistics are not perfect, but they're somewhere in that range. So that has been one of the very interesting developments, how so much of the population has now gone to the internet, to the digital part of it, for reading. Because I feel, sometimes we think reading itself has dropped off, but I don't believe that. I think the Tamil people are very voracious readers. They are such intelligent people, so curious, and I think the readership is continuing. Just the platform on which they are reading has changed, and I think we are in that in between period where the digital media has not matured yet. There is a lot of sort of a sleaze factor there. There's a lot of fake news. There are issues that need to be resolved, and this whole digital media has to mature. And also the monetization has been a challenge, how to make it financially successful. But I'm very confident that's going to happen in the next few years with the pandemic resulting huge interest and move towards the digital media. So that's my just alt and insight on that. Then talking about Kalaignar, Kalaignar was I was very close to him, and he was very close to my family. He had huge respect for my father, and because my father would call him outright, and he was so vocal in his criticism of Kalaignar that nobody else would do in those days. And Kalaignar Karunanidhi respected him for that, and he wrote many articles in Kumudam for us. And as soon as the issue comes out, he will be one of the first. He always wakes up at 5 o'clock, 4:30 in the morning, and then he reads the newspapers and magazines. And he always used to tell me this was one of his favorites that he would read on the very first day we published it. And he was very proud of what I had done, and I would share my small achievements with him, and he would be a huge encouraging factor with me. And every time I go to see him, I remember I'll always, because of his age and respect I had, I would sit on the edge of my chair to talk to him, and he'll always tell me, "Thambi, Sanj saurima ukandunga." That's the first thing he'll always say. And then the other interesting thing I had with him, he knew that I used to do these surveys before the election. We used to have our teams that go out in vans and all over Tamil Nadu, in all the towns and cities, and then collect the survey reports, asking people which party, who they're going to vote for, things like this. And then we used to publish these survey reports. So he knew I had a very good insight on this. And invariably before the election, he'll give me a phone call and say, "Thambi, eppadi irukke? Jaipama." So he was very humorous, very humble. He had a very sweet side to him. So I have very fond memories, and that is continuing with the next generation, with CM Stalin and with Anidhi. They're all very fond of my family, and we have great love and respect for them.
We now move on to the next section, Dr. Paula, and keeping an eye on the time as well, we'll make sure that we cover as much as we can. So in the first point within the second section, we have our first audience speaker of today who would like to ask you a question. This is Mr. V.N. Shivashankar, our Vice President, the Vice President of SICCI. Mr. VNS, please go ahead.
Good morning, Doctor. A pleasure to interact with you in this session.
Mr. VNS, we cannot see you. If you can turn on your video.
Yeah. So pleasure to interact with you, Doctor.
Thank you. It's truly an honor and a pleasure to talk to someone as accomplished as you said. Thank you so much for asking me, being on.
So you have accomplished yourself in various fields. You have held teaching positions, leadership positions in hospitals. So just a couple of brief questions. What, according to you, are the qualities of a teacher, and what are the challenges with which healthcare organizations experience? Though they have to earn money to survive, how can they still achieve the objective of serving the poor?
Wonderful questions, and I think quite a bit about that. So So talking about teaching, I have been in the teaching position at Ohio State University in the professorial situation for almost 2 decades, and I have taught thousands of medical students, all American medical students, and also quite a number of second generation Indian students are now going through the medical system in the U.S. And I for one, I love to teach, and when I teach, it clarifies everything in my own mind. I become a much better person and a smarter person for processing everything before we teach. And I feel when I look at teachers and my own professors in India and all the professors, including myself in the US, I find we as Indians, as civilians, somehow we have a great love for teaching, and we are naturally good at it, and we have that compassion. We want all our students to be successful and do well. So I think it all starts with the love and compassion that we have for our students, the fact that we truly want them to be successful, and the amazing gratification that we get when our students do well. I still have so many random phone calls and letters I'll get. I got a letter from a student. His name is Sean. I'd forgotten all about him. He said, Dr. Paula, I was your student at Ohio State University so many years ago. Now I'm a neurosurgeon. I'm head of a department in Boston, and I still remember what you taught me, and you were a source of inspiration to me. So things like that are so gratifying and so fulfilling. And one of the quotes I've read is like, a 1,000 days of studying a textbook will be equal to 1 day with a great teacher. So it is, teaching is so amazing. I love it, and I encourage everybody. We have learned from others, and it is our duty and responsibility to share it to everyone else. And I think, and like I said, it is in our DNA, and we are very successful at it. Moving on to the financial part of it. So it is a kind of a dilemma, a conundrum, how a physician or a doctor or a hospital, you're expected to be financially successful. At the same time, you have to do what is right for the person, keep the cost to a minimum, where the patient's health and welfare is the absolute overwhelming number one priority. So it is so important that when we are in medical college and studying the Hippocratic Oath, that taking care of our patients is absolute number one. Nothing else should interfere with that decision, what is best for my patient. But having said that, it is also important to be somewhat financially successful. So I love the model, Mr. Shivashankar, that of the Mayo Clinic, Cleveland Clinic concept in America, because in America also most hospitals are in the corporate structure and for profit, but these amazingly successful institutions have this concept of a non-profit hospital. In other words, it's not a charity institution. It's not given for charity. So they do charge a fee, but those are kept to a minimum, just enough to cover the salaries of the nurses and the doctors and to buy the equipment, but not to make a profit. So I think that's a very nice balance. And I think that's a model. If and when I get a chance to do something like this in Chennai, which I hope someday I will, I want to bring that concept in of a non-profit hospital. And I know there are institutions in Tamil Nadu, in Chennai, who already are very successfully doing it. But I'm just saying that it can be done in a very, very big scale, very successfully. I think that's my answer to that.
Dr. Pala, a couple of questions on Kumadam. There have been instances where certain articles have appeared in Kumadam which have been thought to be controversial or have provoked criticism. Is this because free hand has been given to the editors, or do you feel such articles that are written are what readers want to see?
Because my father clearly established the trend for everything that we are doing now and that we have done for the last since 1947. So he set the trend, and he was very clear in giving the youngsters we call them the sub-editors, a free hand in creativity and ideas and so forth. So the way he had it structured, every issue will be given to a different sub-editor. Usually there'll be 3 of them. So they will be the editor in charge of that issue. And so he would give them a free hand. And then these young people would compete with the other editors to make their issue the most successful. So there was always that going on. So they would get on to these topics which are kind of borderline, very controversial, and some of them I think cross the line and have been and have caused issues for us, and some of them have led to legal lawsuits being filed and so forth. But I think all of it was done with the reader in mind, to educate the reader, to provide the information to them that they should see both sides of the picture. And I think in answer to the question, I think it was my father's philosophy of giving this complete freedom, and he would not. Even though it was against his instincts, because he's a very careful, conservative person himself, and that his own persona was so different from the persona of Kumudam, which is youthful, vibrant, flashy, even very attractive in so many different ways. But he was on the leading edge of technology in so many things. Like you may remember, Mr. Arun, that we were the first to introduce the scent, so the issue will smell. You rub on a rose or a jasmine, it'll smell like like a maliapu or a rose. So all these things he would do. So he was doing a lot of cutting edge things, but that was, I think, one of the issues. But because he gave people so much freedom to write without him censoring everything.
Freedom of expression is definitely very, very critical for any developing society. I think that's something that we should uphold in all ways, but at the same time have to be very careful in not hurting sentiments to whatever extent. Striking that fine balance in India has always been a challenge, and hopefully things will improve in the time to come. But when we look at the Kumudam group, there are several magazines under the group. Of course, we have the traditional Kumudam magazine. We also have the magazine that brings in patronage from women, which is called Snehidi. We have another magazine from the Kumudam group which covers politics and current affairs, which is the Kumudam Reporter. And we also have another magazine that covers spiritual content, which is called Bhakti. There are several others also within the Kumudam group of publications. The question now is, how do you plan to cover the business segment, if at all there is business interest within Kumudam to be able to cover that? And also, it's been interesting to note that over 40% of Kumudam's readers do not watch any kind of satellite TV, even once a week. They get as much information from Kumudam. That's a very interesting point that this survey has brought about.
Very, very interesting. So talking about different magazines, so what has happened is within the world of journalism and magazines, that vertical growth in which we were able to have one magazine which covered so many different areas and have this huge circulation, that has disappeared, and I think that has gone for good. We are not going to be able to have another magazine where we are going to have 7 lakh copies, million copies being sold. I don't think we are ever going to see that again. So the growth is going to be more horizontal growth, exactly like you were saying, the specialty niche magazines for each area. So it serves so many people who have a special interest in that. And I see that very much in the US also, and in the West, so many magazines catering to a very niche group of people. Now, coming to the business part of it, and that is one of my great interests, is business, and I hope in the future that we will have one of our magazines dedicated to it. Even though I should say we were in the forefront in bringing business articles. I remember in the 60s and 70s, my father had an entire series on how to be a successful businessman, and then it was written. He and Mr. M.V. Arunachalam from Murugappa Group, so they were good friends. So he wrote the article, a series of articles in Kumudam. His stature was so high, he could have written it any magazine, newspaper in India, but he chose Kumudam to give his views and thoughts because of his respect for the community and love for my father. And they were very good friends. So for example, so that's an example where even in those days we gave importance to business and covered it. And then also within Kumudam we had at one time it was purely entertainment magazine. Mostly, like you all remember, it was all short stories, novels, serial stories, cinema. It was a pure entertainment magazine. But then towards the end of his life, and especially after I took it over, I made it into a value-based magazine and infotainment magazine. So almost 30% of it has been changed to cover motivational, self-improvement, self-help, business, travel, spiritual. So many things were brought into it. So I'm very happy and proud that we did that. And definitely, I think business has become such an important part of our lives. It definitely needs its own structure within us.
We at SICCI are glad that we have our executive committee members joining us. We, of course, have our senior member, Mr. A.L. Chidambaram, and also we have Mr. Ampa Palaniappan. I noticed that Mr. Ampa Palaniappan has raised his hand. He's well known to us, and I would like to request him, Dr. Pala, to ask a question of you. Mr. Ampa, please go ahead.
Yes. Hi, doctor.
Mr. Ampa,
it's my pleasure and honor to talk to you today. An unexpected pleasure. Thank you.
I just wanted to take the easier side of your life. Your fitness, your look, your as for your age. I think that's what you should inspire a lot of. You just spoke about youth and youngsters just now in your magazine. I think that's something you're cycling, your yachting, and all that is what you have to give. The way you have to enjoy life and also live your life to the fullest. I think that's something I wanted you to cover upon. That's why I said I want to come online and say take a little more easier than whatever we have been talking about.
Thank you so much, Ampa. And what a beautiful subject, because I love that subject because of my own personal interest in it. Me as a doctor, as a physician, I should also be an example. And then I want to tell the audience that Ampa Palaniappan has been an inspiration to me. He is so tremendous with his bicycling, with his marathon running, with the way he looks, and the true love and passion with which you do it. Ampa, I think you are an enormous inspiration to the rest of us. So having said that, I feel I always want to feel that we should never ever feel that at a certain age it's time for us to completely quit what we are doing, not work as hard. I don't believe it. I work as hard today as I did when I was in my 20s and 30s, and then I like the joke that age is just a number, and my number is unlisted, so no one knows my number. I like that. And
Dr. Pala, but I already declared when you finished your MBBS.
So I have to blame you for letting the cat out of the bag. So anyway, but I really cherish the fact. So I try myself 3 days a week to do about 1 to 2 hours. I do aerobics, resistance exercises. I try to do some yoga and stretching. Now I live full time in Florida, and so I love going for long walks on the beach. I try to keep up a strenuous workout and exercise program, and because without health, there is nothing. I mean, everything starts with good health, and unless we have a strong body and an alert mind, we will not be able to achieve anything for ourselves. And the more than that, we will not be able to help others, because the essence in life is of being to be productive, to help others, and to make life more fulfilling by giving. And in order for us to do that for our own families, for our own community, and for our own everyone around us, I think it is so important that we pay complete and full attention. So to all our listeners, please don't put that in the back burner. That is number one, is good health and maintaining good physical and mental health.
Dr. Pala, the next question is about education and connectivity with the diaspora. Education is definitely a great platform to be able to build bridges. Tamil Nadu, when you look at it, has been known for its quality education as well as the quality of our educational institutions. How do you feel Tamil Nadu universities here in Tamil Nadu can collaborate with global universities, in particular the US? And can the Tamil diaspora in particular play a active role here in enabling such connectivities between these universities? Also, from the government side, what do you think has to be done in order to improve the quality of medical education in India and Tamil Nadu in particular?
Very interesting. So I feel as the world evolves, Western civilizations, and I've seen it in 3 decades in the U.S. So in the 1970s and 80s, the people in the U.S. Did not look up to India to learn from us. And so they felt they were setting the example to the whole world, and the whole world looked up to them. But now it is amazing that so much of the US, especially the elite societies in the US, the educated people, people in positions of influence in education and so forth, are so much looking up to us from India to show them the way, especially in spirituality, from a religion point of view, from a work ethic point of view, our applications, especially in the world of science, technology, IT, and so forth. So in answer to your question, they are so extremely receptive to whatever we have to say, because we have established our position in the world as one of the great leaders in the field of education and industry and technology and so forth. So having that foundation, being that they are so receptive, this is a great time to have a very good exchange of students and professors and faculty between the two places. Like for example, I've mentioned that at some point I'd like to set up a medical facility, a hospital. That's something along those concepts in Chennai. And it's amazing the number of Americans who have come up to me and said, we would love to come to India and spend a year or 2 years working at the hospital, teaching, learning. And so that is an amazing how much receptivity there is to that concept. So I think it is something that I don't know formally how much it has been explored, but I think the people in positions where they can make these decisions, I think should look at this very closely, because this is the time, a window of opportunity to set this up. Because can you imagine, you have some of the brightest minds from MIT and Harvard and Stanford who all want to come to India and live there and share their ideas, and we want the brightest minds from India to come to US. So I think we should make the world a village, share everybody's ideas, and make this a better place for all of us to live.
We now move on to the third section, Dr. Pala, and I just noticed that we've already completed an hour's time. It's been a great discussion, and in order to be able to cover the balance sections, I think it will be helpful so that we move a bit faster. So moving on to the third area, which is on career path. As mentioned, you've performed more than 15,000 surgeries and one of the leading cardiologists in America. Could you recall any surgery that has been extremely challenging to you, and how have you handled it? What qualities do you think surgeons have to have in order to handle crisis situations?
To me, I am always prepared for every case to be extremely long and complicated. So mentally, I'm ready, because most often I can do my angioplasties, 10 cases within 1 hour, maximum 1.5. I'm done with it. But I'm always prepared, because there are times when I've spent a whole day doing one case, one surgery. So that mental discipline, and not to get frustrated, angry, upset that a case is going so long, that it's so complicated, that is so important. And then to me, every case is so surgery that I do. Like you said, I've done 15,000 to almost 20,000 surgeries in my life. And it's almost every one of them is so exciting, because like I described earlier, and the fact that a patient comes in with such severe pain, sweating, cannot breathe, they think they're going to die, and in panic. And at that moment, you go in, put the balloon, stent, wire, and they feel so happy, so relieved, smile on their face. They are so grateful. It is truly a magical experience every time, and I love that for each and every surgery of mine. And I think the special training is like a lot of us, when something goes wrong, when we're doing something critical, this concept of panic sets in, where we think that the worst thing is going to happen at that moment. And it is so important to keep our mind very clear, very calm, not to think about things like that. But we have a particular problem on our hands, and we have to solve that problem the second. And we should not let our mind get into this worst case scenarios. That's what happens to people. They panic because they think the worst is going to happen right now. And so I've tried to learn how to control my feelings and emotions.
Not panicking is what is key there for anybody in stressful situations to realize. Our next question, Dr. Pala, is from the audience. This is a student, Miss Harsha Vardhani. She's doing her second year IT at SVC in Chennai. Harshvardhani, if you are online, please go ahead.
Thank you, sir.
Can you please turn on your video?
Yes, sir.
Harsha
Yes,
Vardhani?
sir. Yes, sir. So, hi, sir. So you wear multiple hats, that of a media head, cardiologist, professor, and all. So, which role is closest to your heart? So, on that note, why do we equate heart to feelings of love, romance, and affection? So,
Beautiful question from a young lady like yourself. It makes it even more pertinent and interesting. So, maybe coming to the last part of your question. So it's very interesting because that is not the scientifically correct. Because like we all know, the brain is the one. There's a part of the brain called the limbic system, and that is the one that experiences all these emotions, whether it is love, anger, hate. All these emotions are from there. But what happens is they secrete these hormones. The brain is in charge of secreting these neurohormones, and that immediately has secondary effects. So what happens when we are excited to meet somebody who we love, like a typical, say, a movie scene or something like that? We are so excited, happy to meet someone we love. Then we feel our heart is racing, palpitating, skipping. So all along, we have always equated, because those emotions are felt in our chest and in our heart. So we have always felt the heart is the source of all those emotions. And that has been true from the days of Aristotle and Plato for 2,000, 3,000 years. We have always associated love and emotions with the heart. But these hormones, for example, there are two hormones, serotonin and oxytocin. So whenever you meet someone who you like or you love, those chemicals are secreted. So those make you feel so happy and you feel so good. Or you hear an old song that's your favorite, those same chemicals are secreted. But it is so much more. I don't want to destroy anybody's romantic thoughts today. I still want to say the heart is the center of all love and passion and emotion. Yes. And so when coming to, sorry,
her question on having played a role in 4 different fields and still successful.
Very nice. So fortunately for me, when I was focusing on each of these areas, thanks to my father and my family's support and everything else, I was able to totally focus on those areas one at a time. So I did not have a time when I had to really feel I was taking things away from one and had to do something else. So I totally focused on my career in medicine. Then I had this opportunity in journalism to also to show my passion and prove myself in that, and my other businesses. But I love the word compartmentalization, and I first learned that word from Bill Clinton. And what happened, if you remember, he was going through this enormous crisis when he was going to be impeached and removed from office, and he had to give like a legal testimony, everything in the morning. And in the evening, he had to deliver the State of the Union address to the whole country, and which is like pinnacle of what the president has to say. And so because of the turmoil in his life, people thought he was going to botch up the entire State of the Union address, because how can anyone focus on this. And he delivered this immaculate, amazing speech at the State of the Union. So they asked him, Mr. President, how did you achieve this? How can you do this when all this is going on in your personal life? He looked surprised. He said, but there are two different compartments. Those two have nothing to do with each other. You know, that is that is an entirely different compartment from this. So then I learned the success of how all our lives have to be in different compartments. We have to put our full focus in one and not think about the other. And that has been a kind of an inspirational thing to me. And I wanted to share that with you.
One of my favorite questions, I would say, Dr. Pala, is perhaps your grandfather or your great-grandfather was the first owner of an airplane in the 1920s. And he also later imported planes from Germany. Did you share any of his passion? And we are also going to be showing a picture here. You're most welcome to talk about it as well.
So much, Yes, it was actually my grandfather and his brother in the 1920s, S.A. Annamale and S.A.P. Palniappan. So they went to England in the 1920s, and so there we are. So this is a picture of, this is the Madras Flying Club, and so he was the one who was one of the charter members who started the club at Meenambakkam in those days before it became Meenambakkam Airport, for those folks with gray hair who remember the Meenambakkam Airport. And so he's standing, he's the person, he's the third from right, so third from right or third from right in the middle. And that was the plane that he brought from Germany, and it was called Paravai. That was, he named it Paravai. And so the story there is, they went in the 1920s to England, and then the Croydon Airport is where they trained and got their flying license. And Croydon, like is a suburb of London, and the airport, like you remember, like Heathrow, before Heathrow, the international airport in London was at Croydon. It used to be called Imperial Airways before British Airways in those days. And so they attended the flying school there. So the interesting notation that I want to make is he was the first Indian in that school, in Croydon Flying School. And his name is still there because this was researched by the Hindu and was written up. And then he was the first one. And you'll be very interested to know the second person who graduated from that was the J.R.D. Tata. So we have an interesting story there. So anyway, after that, then they bought this airplane, brought it to Chennai, and then from there flew it to Trichy. And then from Tiruchirappalli, they took it by road to Chettinad, to Kannadikattan. So in my house in Kannadikattan, that airport hangar is still there, and the runway is still there. So it's just an amazing piece of history and trivia that we're all so proud of. So that we achieved this in the 1920s, over 100 years ago. It shows the energy, the self-confidence, the courage of all Indians, Tamilians, and then you narrow it down to the Chettiar Nagarathar community, the courage that they showed and the self-confidence that they had. But then in those days, the 1920s and 30s, the flying was such a exciting thing for so many successful and wealthy people. Like you remember, Maharaja Man Singh from Jaipur is one of the most accomplished pilots in those days. So all of them were into flying.
Moving on to our next section, Dr. Pala, keeping time in mind. This section is on your inputs for the next generation. When we look at the medical profession, the main purpose of this profession is to be able to serve humanity. Whether any kind of reward or financial gain is always a subordinate consideration. But it is said that physicians, several of them, place their own financial interests above welfare of the patients. How do we guide the next generation, get over this, and concentrate on what medicine is supposed to be about?
Very true. But I think we will never be able to completely eliminate that there will be a small percentage of doctors, physicians who place so much importance on the remuneration and the financial part of it. But I think the vast majority of doctors, because I see so many of them, talk to so many of them in India as well as in US, I think all of us love our patients. We love the intellectual stimulation of medicine. We are all talking about the latest developments, the breakthroughs. We are all meeting at these international symposiums, and who has written which article, which was published in which journal. I mean, so still the scientific community is very pure in that sense. But unfortunately, recently, it has become more of an issue because sometimes that is being used as a measure of success. You know, the hospital or the doctor that's making the most money is the most successful. And I think it has to go deep down into our next generation, that is not the true measure of success. The true measure of success is the care that you provided the patient, the gratitude that the patient has, the fulfillment you derive from that, and the financial reward is just a very small part. Because if someone really wants to make money, I think there are so many, and since I have done so many businesses, there are easier ways to make money than in medicine. Medicine is not the place to make money. It's a whole different world, and the gratification and fulfillment from there is what you strive for. And please, for someone who's listening, the youngsters, if money is your motive, there are many easier ways to do it than through medicine.
Very well said, Dr. Pala, and very true as well. Our next question is from the audience. Dr. Balaji, who's executive committee member of SICCI and heads our healthcare committee. Dr. Balaji, please go ahead.
So I guess there is some connectivity problem. He just left the meetings.
Okay, all right. So the question that he had wanted to ask Dr. Pala is that when we look at medical education in India, it is a challenge. The available seats are low and it is also very expensive. When students explore other options like Eastern Europe or perhaps Ukraine, as we have now encountered, they now have a quandary because they don't have anywhere to go to. How do we approach such an issue so that we are able to ensure that our children are able to get an education within our own country, our own state for that matter, and they don't have to be able to either look at other avenues because the expense is too high, or they don't have to go outside? What is your suggestion in order to be able to overcome this?
It's very important and very pertinent at this point in time. I feel, see, there are some countries who just don't have the infrastructure, the professors, the teaching, the history and tradition. And so they are forced to send their students to other countries. And I would say a lot of African countries are in that group, and maybe some Southeast Asian countries. But we are so unique that our infrastructure in medicine is so amazing. Since I have seen both sides of the world. I've lived in both and been successful in both. I can say that our system in India is probably superior to anything else that there is when it comes to the quality of our teaching, our professors, the structure, the infrastructure is just so fantastic. And then again, the history, like I said, 1835, before a lot of the universities in US were established, we had our own medical college in Madras Medical College was open. So we go a long ways back. So I think the challenge now is we have kept up the quality. And then, of course, so from what I last read, there are like 30 odd government medical colleges and 30 odd private medical colleges in Tamil Nadu. And so out of a total of about 50,000 seats in India, I think close to about 10,000 are in Tamil Nadu. So we are very proud of what we have done in our field of medicine and teaching, and so we are already at successful. But what has happened is the population growth has been so much faster. then the growth of education, especially medical education. And one of the things that holds it back is you need good hospitals, because it's not just opening a college and just teaching like you can stay in engineering, but you need good hospitals where they can be taught hands-on the clinical aspects of medicine. So it's truly going to be a difficult challenge, but I think since we already have the basics in place, I think we need to just multiply on our success. And definitely, I would say we probably need to right away increase our number of seats by at least 25%, because our need is so tremendous at this time. And the need is so high for physicians and nurses, not just in India, but anywhere in the world, so they would love to have, they love to have us in anywhere in Western Europe or in America. And because the quality of our education in India. I'm sorry, I don't have more specific answer to it, but I think that's my general concept.
Actually, Dr. Balaji has come back online. Dr. Balaji, would you just like to say hello to Dr. Pala?
Good morning, sir. Hi.
We cannot see you, Dr.
Pala. Oh, yeah, sorry. Good morning. Hi.
Yeah.
Hi, sorry. I am Dr. Balaji. I'm in fact one of the Madras Medical College alumni as well, like you.
Okay, thank you.
Right. It was a pleasure listening to you, all the stories. It's nice. You're doing excellent work there. Right. I want to ask you something about health economics. I think you briefly touched upon this model. There is nothing like a cheap healthcare, or healthcare is a very expensive thing if you want to give a quality healthcare. In a country like India, how do you make it affordable to it's a common man? I'm talking about the best healthcare. There are models in, as you said, some of the centers in Chennai and other places, but it is very expensive, beyond the reach of most of the common man. So do you have any thoughts about it?
So I think that's so important, because there has to be a strong social network system by which the best care is given to the patient, irrespective of cost, and then for those who cannot afford it, there has to be a system that picks up the cost of it. In other words, we don't want to have a two-tier system where we have a very good system of medicine, which is going to cost a lot, or the option is to go to a system that is not so good just because it is cheap or is free. So we want to have a very same level system that should be approached, the same care and that crorepati gets, that's also a poor man should be able to get. So that should be our ultimate goal, because I've always felt our college there are like maybe 3 areas where money should have nothing to do with that field. So one is education. I think education has to be done for the love of it, not because somebody is paying you to do it. Secondly is healthcare, where we need to take care of people, and the financial implications have to be zero in that thing. And apart from education, healthcare, the third most important, I think, is spirituality, where spirituality and money should be totally separated. They should never, ever be mingled together. So having said that, so I am hoping, and I don't have a good answer to it also, but I think that we should be able, because in the US, what happens, that for those who are not able to pay, they are still able to go to the best hospital there is. They can go to the Massachusetts General Hospital, they can go to Cleveland Clinic, get the best care. And then there are systems that they have where if the patient absolutely does not have the funds to pay for it, then they go into certain philanthropic things that are set up to help people in need, because there are so many wealthy people who want to do philanthropic things, charities, and this is a great thing to set up. You give it to people who truly need it, and I think something like that should be established, I think.
Thank you.
Thank you, Which I'm glad I have my fellow alumnus with me on the program today. So thank you for joining, Dr. Balaji.
Thank you.
Dr. Pala, I requested you to wear your doctor's coat, and you felt otherwise, but I'm glad that Dr. Balaji has represented you.
I'm very proud of that. So
we now move on to the last section, which is your inputs for society. We have another question from the audience. This is another student, Miss Aishwarya Sithi. She's doing her fourth year biotech at SVC Chennai. Aishwarya, please go ahead.
Hi, sir.
If you can please turn on your
Yes,
video,
yeah.
Aishwarya.
Yes, sir. Yes, I'm. Sir, am I visible?
Yes, please
Yes,
go
very
ahead.
nice. Thanks. I can see you, Aishwarya.
Hi, sir. So my question is, what's the need for cardiac rehabilitation program, and how is your different from others in field? And you have plans to establish the world-class cardiology hospital in Chennai. When can we expect it? Also, Chennai is known for its top-class health infrastructure. How will yours be different from the rest?
Thank you for leading me on to those. So cardiac rehabilitation is so important because a lot of times after a heart attack or surgery or a procedure, we just tell patients go home and go and walk and exercise and things, and they are very uncomfortable doing that on their own because they think anything they do is going to cause another heart attack or angina and so forth. So the way we have set up the rehab programs is that you're in a group and there is someone, maybe a nurse, maybe a doctor, who is physically there watching the heart monitor as you're exercising. So, and then also guide the patient. What is the level of exercise, the exercise prescription, week 1, week 2, so forth. So we do it for a total of 12 weeks. And the nice thing is that it's totally covered by insurance in most of the Western countries. So I'm a big believer in cardiac rehab, both from the physical and mental aspects of it, so that is one. Then you asked about the hospital. Yes. So of all the things that I've done, the one that I have not yet been able to achieve, which I hope in the next coming years I'll be able to do, I want to set up a hospital focused on a heart hospital, which that I find the best of India, the best of US, combine the two, provide the highest quality of care at the most reasonable price, and also to bring the points that I made earlier, where the quality is maintained because we have such a strict control, quality control within the hospital, where everyone is very carefully watched, very carefully monitored, and the quality assurance comes out. That gives the confidence to the patient that every decision that is being made is made in the best interest of the patient. There is absolutely no other incentives built into this, and that it is truly a not-for-profit hospital. So that is my dream that I hope I'll be able to achieve in the coming years.
Dr. Paula, we
Thank
now
you
come
for
to
your question.
the last question for today, keeping time in consideration. This is about women and empowering women. Even today, we talk about women empowerment, and we talk about the lack of or shortage of women on corporate boards or various institutions. However, Kumudam has been a pioneer, and your mother, Mrs. Kodai Annamale, has been on the board since the beginning, perhaps until her passing away a few years ago. How did this come about? What were challenges your mother faced, as printing is perhaps and publishing is perhaps predominantly a male-dominated industry?
Thank you and I think it gives me a very nice segue in a kind of a concluding manner to talk about women and talk about my mother. So, and she was a truly remarkable person, she was with my father from day one. They say this. What is so special about your mother is she's the first one you look at when you open your eyes for the first time, and her hugs and kisses are with you long after she's gone. And so my mother was truly someone in that mold. And so she was with my father in 1947, and you can see in this picture she's sitting in the middle right next to me. So she was with my father in 1947 when we started. She has a tremendous interest in journalism, especially the pulse of the people, what people like. And her favorite word is Janaranjagam. She'll always tell everyone, my editorial team, if the magazine has to be very Janaranjagam. That means the common man, the popular man. It has to be popular, not very highbrow. That was one of her favorite words. So So she worked with my father right through, and she was on the board of Akumudam board from the time when we incorporated till the day she unfortunately passed away last year. So which is almost a year ago. she was always on the board, and she was a source, an anchor for us with her wisdom, with her intelligence, with her humor, guiding us through so many trials and tribulations, and being a woman, a mother, and her age and wisdom, she was able to give so much as a board position. But more than that, she was a source of advice to our entire editorial team for almost like 30 years after my father passed away. Our entire youngsters, they would go to my house, go and ask her, Archie, did you see the last issue of Kumudam? Tell us what you think. What should we improve? What did we do good? What did we do bad? She will read every line of every issue, and she has a separate notebook. She'll critique everything and then tell them these are good stories, these are bad stories. And she, till the very end, would choose the letters to the editor that we publish. The number of the short stories were chosen by her. So she played a huge role. And I truly believe the future is women. And I think half our readers, or maybe more, are women. And I am like a lot of I'm very close to my sisters, and especially to my sister who's helping me a lot with this. And I rely on them to give me a lot of input, because they are also such special people who have such tremendous insights into our legacy. So I think a lot we need to give women a very, very important role as we go forward. That inclusivity makes us a better person and us a better community.
For those of our audience who are not familiar with the Nagratar community, we refer to our women, elderly women, as Archie, and that is what Dr. Paula had also mentioned. Dr. Paula, my wife and I had the opportunity to know your mother, and certainly a person with a great sense of humor, much more than anything else. It's very easy for her to make people laugh, and today that's very important in our society as we move on very anxious moments. But that brings us to the end of our discussion section of today's program, Dr. Paula. Thank you very much for your patience.
So much, Arun. Thank you so much for your energy and for making this such a wonderful success. And I truly appreciate it. And I appreciate Wally, I know, who does so much to help you with it, and also for each and every one of our participants. And thank you for all those very interesting questions. Hope I've been able to inspire a few of the younger people. And I, for one, have learned a lot from all of you. Thank you so much.
Dr. Paula, this brings us to the second section of the program. Of course, it's supposed to come as a surprise to you. This section is the rapid fire round, and I made a mistake yesterday where I shared the questions with you already. So I figured that it's not going to be a surprise to you, but I was able to fix that mistake with the help of the chair of our SICCI 360 committee as well as our coordinator. So while you do know that there is a while you do know that there is a rapid fire round, the questions have been changed. Out of the 5 questions, I was not able to change one, but we were able to change 4. So it is going to be a surprise to you. And for the benefit of our audience, what the rapid fire round is about is that I would like to give Dr. Paula one word totaling to 5 words. And we would like to hear from Dr. Paula what comes to his mind immediately when he hears this. So Dr. Paula, can we get started?
So a total of 5 words you said, around, and so just a brief answer to each, right?
What comes to your mind? It can be one word, it can be a few words, but as brief as possible.
Thank you. Thank you.
But don't worry, we won't be making you uncomfortable in any way. As I
yes, this is my most nervous and exciting part of today's discussion.
So shall we get started?
Please.
The first one is Kodayachi.
Beautiful motherhood, inspiration, not just for her son, but for the whole world.
Very nice. The second word is Kumudam.
Father's dream and his heartbeat, a legacy that will live forever.
The third is Chettinad.
Grandeur in architecture and courage of the people who built it that is going to live forever?
The fourth word is pandemic.
Tested humanity, brought out the greatest strengths we all have.
And the last one is writing.
The ultimate creativity and expression of oneself that gives amazing fulfillment in sharing it to the world.
Thank you very much, Dr. Paula.
Thank you.
I made sure that I changed 4 of those, so you were not prepared for it. So I appreciate your frank answers as soon as I was able to share each one of them. Again, it has been great having you with us, Dr. Paula. Thank you very, very much. As part of the SICCI 360 program, we would like you to autograph your photograph. This is for our memorabilia. We will have it sent to you. If we can request you to please autograph it along with affixing today's date, we would appreciate it. We will send it to you at the earliest opportunity. Also, as a token of our appreciation, the SICCI 360 team has come up with a new way of honoring our guests. I'm sure you're aware of what is known as the Kanchi Kamakoti Child's Trust Hospital in Nungambakam in Chennai. And this hospital has been providing EOMAN service to families, underprivileged families in particular, and children from such families. So they treat children with a very low expenditure. This family has been around for several decades and continuing to do very, very well. So we have taken the liberty, Dr. Paula, to contribute in your name to this hospital so that it can fund the expenses of underprivileged child's necessities. This is a certificate that the hospital has given us, and we will have this sent to you at the earliest opportunity as well. Thank you very, very much again for being with us. We greatly appreciate it. I would also like to take this opportunity to share with our audience today that SICCI 360 has now completed 19 sessions along with today's session. We started this in October of 2020, for those of you who might be aware. And since October of 2020, every month without a break, we've been conducting a session every month. And we have had 19 wonderful speakers who have joined us and shared with us their life's journey. Of course, the planning for this started much before of October 2020. It was in February 2020, about 10 months ago, 8 months prior to that was when we started the planning process to put everything into place and form the committee and so on. But of course, this thought process was in my mind for slightly more than that time frame. And when we first started off, we felt that we have the first 2 or 3 speakers identified. But every month we've been able to get a wonderful speaker adding on to the wonderful job that we've been doing. And the reason for this is because we have kept things simple. We've made sure that we don't take anything for granted. We make sure that we conduct every program as if it is our first program, and we also enjoy what we do. Wanted to share that with you. And all of this would not have been possible without the efforts of our very good SICCI 360 committee. This committee is led by Mrs. Valli Arun, who's president of the Velingro Group and trustee of the Tamilisai Sangam. The co-chair of this committee is Professor T. Murugavel, who's head of the Department of Humanities and Social Sciences at SVC Chennai. Professor Murugavel is in charge of putting together the questions for each one of our programs. He does the research on each one of our guests and make sure that he's able to present this to us so that we can share it with you. Mr. Gokul Santanam is Senior Vice President of Emphasis. He's responsible for the marketing of the SICCI 360 program. Mr. Amalan Alavandar, he's an environment consultant at the Asian Development Bank. He's responsible for the online moderation of the chat session. Ms. Vilasini Meenakshi Arun is a student of clinical psychology. She brings in the student perspective into the SICCI 360 series. Mr. Vinod Solomon, Secretary SICCI, and Ms. Bhavani Srinivasan, Assistant Secretary SICCI, is the coordinator of the SICCI 360 program. It is without such an effective committee, there's no way that we could have been able to come through so many sessions, and as well as being able to have sessions in plan for you in the coming future also. I'm glad to share with you that the next SICCI 360 session which is session 20, has been scheduled. This is with another multidimensional successful person. This is Mr. M.R. Rangaswamy. He is based in San Francisco in the US. He again holds multiple hats and has been successful in all of them. He's an entrepreneur, he's an investor, he's a corporate eco-strategy expert, as well as a philanthropist. He's managing director. He co-founded what is known as the Sandhill Group, which is one of the well-known investment companies based out of the Bay Area in California. He's also founder of Diaspora, which is a non-profit organization that takes care of Indians' interests globally. He's also a founder of the Corporate Eco Forum CEF. So this session has been scheduled on the 10th of May next month, and it's scheduled for 10 a.m. IST, going to be held online WebEx. We request you to please mark your calendars and join us for this program. Before we end, I wanted to take this opportunity to share two very interesting initiatives that SICCI has started under the leadership of Mr. BNS and myself since we took over about 18 months ago. When we took over in August of 2020, we started putting together a slew of initiatives that we wanted to put in place within SICCI and ensure that the good work that SICCI has been doing over the last 111 years continues forth in full force in the coming century as well. So towards this, there were several initiatives that we've started. Two more initiatives that we've started now recently is what I wanted to talk to you about. Some of you will be aware of the significant work that we're doing along with the government of Tamil Nadu. One such activity has been that of the Readers Lounge project. We've been working with the Chennai Corporation along with the Chennai Metro Rail Stations, CMRL, in order to set up what is known as the Readers Lounges within the Chennai stations. So we're going to be doing the first one shortly. The work is going to be starting shortly. The focus of these Readers Lounges is going to be to encourage young readers to inculcate the reading habit and promote it as much as possible. We are very glad that Rajalakshmi Engineering College is going to be partnering with us and taking care of bulk of the expenses. We are certainly going to be working with others as well, because it's a good advertisement scenario as well for these companies partnering with us. This is going to be rolled out perhaps within the next 3 to 4 months' time. And we're going to be targeting the reading community. We're targeting the publishing community. We are targeting also the music community, because this can be a good platform to enable all such initiatives. Those of you who are interested or would like to know more information, please feel free to reach us and we'll be glad to share that with you. The second initiative that we are starting is that some of you would be aware that SICCI is not just within Tamil Nadu. SICCI has extended its wings into Andhra Pradesh as well as into Puducherry. We are very glad that we are going to be having a very good program along with the government of Puducherry, where they have specifically reached out to us and wanting to partner with us in their growth. This is a CXO conclave that has been scheduled for the 23rd of April, where we are bringing in foreign missions to also participate to grow industry within Tamil Nadu. We are focusing primarily on the MSME sector, where we are also bringing about tourism and beverages manufacture within Puducherry. Of course, some of you would be aware that I also play the role of the Honorary Council of the Czech Republic. So the Czech Republic is going to be partnering with this event. We also have the government, the Council General of France, who's already based in Puducherry, partnering with this event. So for those of you who would be interested, please again reach out to us and we'll be glad to share more information. This event is going to be held in hybrid mode, that is both on site in Puducherry as well as online. So whatever is convenient to you, please feel free to join us. So SICCI continues to come up with such initiatives that are of value to our stakeholders. That's something that I'm trying to establish within my presidency, and I'm sure Mr. BNS will be continuing forth in the time to come as well. Wanted to take this opportunity to share these 2 points with you. Again, thank you very, very much, Dr. Paula, for having joined us today. And I would also like to thank each one of our audience for being with us. Do certainly continue to be a part of our programs. We appreciate your participation and certainly wishing each one of you safe times ahead. Thank you. Nandri. Vanakkam.
So much. Thank you. Thank you, Vanakkam. Wishing all of you tremendous success in your lives. Thank you. Vanakkam.
Thank you, Dr. Paula.
Thank you, sir.